Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast, your hub for everything off-road, dual sport, and adventure motorcycle. My name is John. I will be your host. This is episode number 19, Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Can't believe we are 19 episodes in already. This is crazy. Tonight, we're going to talk to Evan, who is a co-owner of Mag Tours. Their website is rideguatemala.com. And here's the bottom line. If you want to go take a motorcycle adventure in Guatemala, these are the guys to talk to. Man, I can't believe all the guests we've interviewed. It seems like everybody's ridden in Mexico or Central America or South America. Everybody's been down there except me. So definitely need to work on that in the next year or two. I'd love to get down there and do some riding and hopefully hook up with Evan and his group and see the country of Guatemala too. So really looking forward to that in the future. But again, Mag Tours puts on some amazing rides down there in the heart of Guatemala. If you're looking for, not only a motorcycle adventure, but kind of a vacation too, I think this is definitely the way to go. But obviously I'm not as qualified to speak about this as Evan is. So let's talk to him. And again, episode number 19, Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. I am part owner. I have a partner in the business. We're both 50-50. My partner is David Corsol. He's from Montreal. We met up down here in Guatemala about 7 years back or so. And we've been running the moto tour business here for about 5. I think this is our 5th season now. Okay.
Curious, you're obviously not from Guatemala. I believe you're from New Hampshire, correct?
Yes, Northeast.
So how did you end up down there? What put you down in Guatemala and then ultimately got you into running motorcycle tours?
Well, I came down here on a bike a long time ago. I left the States almost 9 years ago now on my bike. I had spent a couple years in the States sort of traveling around by motorcycle. Did all sorts of great riding through central and western U.S. And I eventually crossed the border down into Mexico. I spent about 1.5 years in Mexico, zigzagging around. I spent a lot of time down in the Playa del Carmen area, hanging out by the beach. I did get my motorcycle eventually down to Panama. I had initially planned to go further, but ended up coming back up to Guatemala where I had met some people, kind of like the area, and I've been here ever since, actually. And I teamed up with a riding friend of mine that I had met here, David Corsol, who's now my partner. We used to do a lot of riding together. He was at the time doing some work at a small motorcycle rental shop here in town. He had come down from Canada to work there, and I was sort of helping out there as well, a little bit off and on when they needed an extra hand. But he and I became pretty good friends. We were doing a lot of riding together, and we'd just been brainstorming on the idea for a while and of offering some longer format tours through Guatemala because there's so much to see in this country, but not a lot of ways to get out there. And so eventually we decided to sort of pull the trigger. We bought a few bikes, and it's been going pretty good. It's been growing pretty steadily ever since, and we're having a good year this year. So we've been pretty pleased.
Okay. Stepping back a little bit, what kind of sparked you getting out and starting to adventure on the motorcycle? It seemed like that ultimately parlayed into what you're doing today.
Yeah. Well, motorcycling's been a big part of my life for a long time. I grew up riding smaller off-road bikes when I was a kid, XR100, that sort of thing, and doing a lot of trail riding through high school years. Once I turned 18, I got a street bike, an old beat-up Honda 750, and I learned sort of how to maintain bikes, and I did a lot of repair work back then. Through my college years, I was buying and selling a lot of bikes. I was doing a lot of flipping, essentially, to sort of pay my bills back then. I would do, I'd buy old beat-up bikes, strip them down, rebuild the motors, do a backyard paint job, fresh tires, brakes, resell them, that sort of thing. And I was doing that for a number of years. But it was probably sites like ADV Rider that initially piqued my interest. Once that sort of started becoming popular and I got hooked in there, because I had been doing a lot of riding just alone up in the Northeast, But once I started reading people's rides reports about all the terrain and things out west and in Colorado and Utah and California and all that, that just really piqued my interest and made me want to get out on the road. And there was one video in particular, actually, I can remember, I think in the early days of YouTube, there were these a couple guys on 250s who rode the 5 Miles of Hell trail out in Utah. Do you know that trail?
Yeah, very well.
And yeah, I've written about this once or twice in my various ride reports and things, but there was a video that two guys put out. It was a helmet cam, and this is back before everyone had GoPros. I'm not sure what they filmed it on. It was pretty pixelated, but it was the two of them out riding the 5 Miles of Hell trail, and it was so cool to me back then when I was, 24 or so. And I said, man, I got to get out and see some of these cool places and ride the desert and Moab and do the things some of these other guys are doing. So that really sparked my interest, and I ended up getting an RV. I got this old beat-up trailer, and I modified it to fit some motorcycles inside. And I spent about a year zigzagging across the U.S., living out of the camper, and just riding all these great places I had put pins in the map for. And 5 Miles of Hell was one of them, and that was a real milestone for me. It was a lot of fun.
So while you were out in the van, did you, just being curious, did you encounter any adversity out there, or was everything pretty much smooth sailing for you?
No, I didn't have any major issues. I was spending a lot of time mostly at national parks and free campgrounds. There used to be these books. There was an East Coast version and a West Coast version of free campgrounds or places to park your RV. I don't know if those books still exist, but I had both versions of that, and I would just go any place they recommended. I would basically park the RV, post up, and then I'd pull the bikes out and I'd go exploring. But there's some great riding. I started in West Virginia. I think it's the Hatfield-McCoy trail system out there. Did a lot of riding there. Out through Kansas, I remember there were some really fun trails in the national parks there in Kansas. And eventually I got out further west, like Colorado. I spent a lot of time in Colorado, around Moab, just checking out all sorts of things. But I never really had any difficulties on the road. But I was traveling slow and cheap and, solo, so I wasn't too worried about much back then.
Great point about ADV rider. Good place to go for inspiration and ideas of where to ride. But if you're, kind of stoked up due to winter or whatever, you can't get out, it's like the worst place to go. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just go ahead.
And I used to post up about some ride reports on there. I used to be a lot more involved on ADV Rider than I am these days. But that's a really great community, and I'd recommend it to anybody who's looking to get out on the road, whether off-road or on-road. And just a great place to sort of piece together fun tracks and fun stops, and also to meet people to ride with. I've met up with all sorts of people over the years through that forum, just for a day ride and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on that site, and like you can go to the I believe it's the Epic Ride Reports section, and basically just take some tracks and redo what somebody else has already done. And like you said, it's not uncommon to see people on their posting saying, "Hey, I'm going to ride through here. I'm looking for more people to ride with." And a couple hours later, you see 3 or 4 people post up and say, "Hey, I'll join you." It's a really cool community, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
You have something to say?
No, continue.
Okay. Sorry, sound like you're going to
no worries.
chime in there. A little bit of history about Mag Tours. You guys started in 2013, correct?
That sounds about right. Yeah, I think this is our 5th season with the business.
How many bikes did you guys start out with originally?
When we initially started, we had 4 bikes. We each that was sort of our investment up front. We each bought 2 new bikes, so we had 4 Honda 250s. And now we still run the Honda 250s. We've got a lot more of them now, but initially we started with 4, and we just said, let's see if we can piece together some good routes and promote them, and let's see if we can get some people down here to give it a try with us. And so the first year was really a test for us. We did manage to get a few real customers. We had a few friends come down at first, and we did some practice rides essentially. we had done a lot of exploring on our own and pieced together what we thought would work. And we had also done some tour guiding here locally within the Antigua area. But going out on the road for long periods of time with customers was new to us both. So we kind of wet our feet by having some friends and family come down and ride with us a bit. But we eventually got a few customers, and it's just been a steady progression since then. Our second year, we were really fortunate to book some large groups, and it enabled us to expand the business quite quickly. And now we've got a fleet of I think we've got 14 bikes here at the shop now, plus a few extras kicking around. And it's been exciting because now we've even got dates this year. We're fully booked and every bike is reserved, and it's pretty exciting for us.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. I'm curious to know, how your routes have evolved over time. We'll dig deeper into your tours, but speaking from a little bit of experience, it's weird how things, like I said, evolve. You think you've got this amazing ride, and then you find some other road along the way or another point of interest. Have things changed a lot for you guys over the years on some of your rides?
Oh, for sure. And even now that we consider our tours pretty well ironed out and perfected, we still always come up with new little ideas and twists and places where we can make a small change that will improve the customer experience on the ride. But yeah, they've definitely evolved. We go to all the same general destinations as when we started, but we've definitely fine-tuned the roads and the tracks we use, as well as things like lunch stops or places we stop to take a photo and local visits. And a lot of that for us too has come through just meeting more and more locals. We have a lot of connections now out in the hills and little villages, and so we can make a lot of really unique cultural stops that we couldn't initially. So our tours have been, for us, just a natural progression, I suppose, of doing it over and over and just refining and improving. And they're definitely better now than they were initially, but they were really good initially too.
So you started out with some Honda 250s. Is that what you're still renting and guiding people on, or do you have a little more of a diversity in your lineup nowadays?
We've got 10 of the Honda, they call them the Tornado XR 250. That's our primary fleet bike. That's the bike we like the most. They call it an XR 250, but it's a Latin America only model. It's not quite like the XR 250 in the States. It comes factory street legal. It's a twin cam motor. It's a different motor, different chassis, different everything. But it is a dual sport style bike, and they're really capable both on road and off road. And the terrain here that we ride is really tight and curvy, and a lot of changes in elevation and rough roads and slippery roads and things. So having kind of a lightweight 250 just really suits the terrain here. We've also got some KLR 650s. We generally only use those when customers are coming with a passenger and want to ride two up. They're a lot more comfortable for two up riding, obviously. Some people want to take a 650 out on our regular tours or rentals, but we generally try and push them towards a 250 because honestly, you have more fun on them here. And that's been one challenge we've had over the years of doing this, is people who are coming from the States or Canada or Europe or Australia or wherever it may be are used to riding bigger bikes off-road. And so we always have to, well, not always, we sometimes have to talk people into it a little bit because they're not used to riding a small bike, or people have concerns about riding a small bike. Oh, is it, going to have enough power for me? Am I going to have fun on it? This sort of thing. But almost unanimously at the end of the tour, any customer who had doubts raves about the bike, and they really like riding it. And they said, man, it was so much fun to have a lighter weight bike than I'm used to. And it's got plenty of power for the roads up here, because we're always using back roads and small quiet roads anyway. So you don't need to be ripping it. We rarely get to fifth or sixth gear on these things.
Okay. I'm curious, 14 bikes, how do you keep up maintenance schedule on all those things?
It's a lot of work. I
know the struggle.
Yeah, we change a lot of oil and tires and brakes and all the essentials. Fortunately, because we've bought all brand new bikes, and these are Hondas, and they're not high tech, they're just good standard technology bikes. They are really easy to maintain, and we've never had any major issues with any of them. So it's mostly just the easy stuff like the oil, tires, chains. And we've got a schedule that, we keep them all on every X number of kilometers. We check all these various issues on the bike and make sure everything's ready to go. We do have, me and my partner do most of the work, but we've also got a local mechanic who, when we have a workshop day, we'll invite him over and he'll help us out for the day as well. So it's definitely work maintaining the bikes, but it hasn't been too bad. We've never had any major issues.
It's a labor of love, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I like getting greasy and dirty, so it's it works out great for me.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, and like back in the day when I was doing all the bike flipping and stuff, I was always just, I had my hands into the engine cases and stuff. So for me, working on the bikes is really cathartic, and I enjoy it. Put on some music, and if it's later in the afternoon, crack a beer, and it's just it's fun to maintain it sometimes.
Yeah, it's another great way to disconnect. I don't disagree. Sometimes it can be kind of a pain maintaining all of them, but at other times it's just a nice way to kind of step away from everything, the day-to-day stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about tours, you guys offer guided, self-guided. Obviously, I think that's self-explanatory. But, what's a typical day like on one of your guided tours?
Sure. Well, we do adapt our days a little bit to the interests and the sort of the riding ability of our customers, because we get all types of demographics here. We get older and younger customers. We get really experienced riders and some riders who aren't as experienced. And we get people who want more dirt or less dirt, that sort of thing. But in general, we stay every night. We're in nice hotels. We stayed at a couple farms like way out in the hills too that are a really unique experience. But generally we have a big group breakfast kind of thing, usually at the hotel or a restaurant nearby. We'll gear up in the morning, be on the road by 8:30 or 9. And most of our days we try and fill pretty well, 6 to 7 hours total time. And that's, a mix of riding and stops and visits and things. So usually we leave the hotel 8:39. We get into the next hotel at 3:30 or 4, give or take. We'll stop for lunch along the way. We always try and incorporate a bunch of viewpoints. The riding out here is so scenic, especially if you were to do, say, like our mountain loop tour that goes up into the Guatemala Mountains. It's a really just beautiful area, and so we stop a lot to sort of take in the view and relax and enjoy the experience. Most of our customers, of course, really want to ride, but also they're on vacation and they're here to visit and see the country and sort of soak it in. So we try and go at that sort of pace where you can have some thrilling riding sections, but sort of broken up throughout the day with interesting visits and cultural experiences and new experiences.
So kind of shooting from the hip, obviously I've never been to Guatemala. What's the weather going to be like any given time of the year? My assumption is that it's sunny, probably nearly year round, hotter in the summers. I mean, am I close? Am I warm?
It depends on which region you're in. Guatemala has a really diverse landscape. So like right where I am here, where our shop is in Antigua, we sit at about 5,000 feet and we're kind of wedged between some mountains and volcanoes. So here in town in our area, the weather stays pretty much stable the whole entire year. It really doesn't change much. But down in the lowlands, there's definitely some more temperature fluctuation between winter and summer. But also temperature-wise, when we go up north, say, to the Mayan ruins of Tikal, it's very, very hot up there. It's low elevation. You're sort of in the middle, up towards the Yucatan. It's just very hot. But around here, in Antigua, it's very mild. When we go up to the Cuchumatanes Mountains, say when we stay on, there's a little cheese farm out there in the hill we stay at a lot. They're at about 6,400 feet or so, but it's a much cooler area, so it can actually get pretty chilly at night. Particularly in the middle of winter, it can get down to, the 40s. It's chilly for here, not chilly for people from the north. But, so there's a wide range of temperatures throughout the year and also just throughout the riding we do, because we'll visit a lot of different areas on our tours, particularly if you were to come down and do, say our 12-day tour, which is a huge loop of the whole country, you'll see hot temperatures, you'll see cold temperatures, you'll see wet, you'll see dry. Big variation. Guatemala has a lot of microclimates, they say.
Okay. Back to the tours a little bit. Hypothetically speaking, if I'm to book your 13-day trifecta 3-country ride, what's going to be included for me as a guest?
Oh, well, our tours are all almost completely inclusive. We pick you up at the airport and bring you to your hotel. We include all the hotels every night, all your breakfasts, the bike, tour guide. Usually going out on the road, it's usually either me or my partner leading a tour. We now have a third tour guide we've been working with, who's starting to lead some tours with us as well. But basically everything is included except your own personal food and drink along the way. We include all the liability insurance for the bikes. Our entire fleet's fully insured, which isn't the easiest thing to do down here in Guatemala.
I bet.
And we've got a full array of nice gear here as well that people can use. Generally, our customers bring their own gear because most of our customers, are seasoned riders where they're from and have gear that they like, so they're most comfortable in their own. But we have all sorts of gear here as well if anyone needs anything.
Okay, speaking of the food and drink, again, I'm going to make another assumption here. It's probably really affordable compared to the States, for instance. Would that be a correct assumption?
Definitely, yes. And there's in a couple of the touristy towns, there's a wide range of what's available. You can get a cheap meal or an expensive meal if you wanted. But most of the time we're in areas where there's not a lot of tourism, and that's sort of the advantage of going on a tour with us. You get to see these places that other people can't. And generally in those towns, there's fewer food options, but they're all economical. There's some great local food around. There's depending on the areas, there's a lot of fresh fish and even some lobster down by Rio Dulce. But yeah, food is very affordable here. Drinks are very affordable. It ends up being a pretty economical trip in the end.
I also noticed that you have the option to put some add-ons on a trip, possibly. There's all sorts of things to do in Guatemala and the surrounding area that aren't necessarily included on the trip. Like one thing we've done a handful of times is deep sea fishing. So we've had some customers who are into that, so we schedule a day at the beginning or end of the trip to go out on the water and do some fishing. In certain cases, we've done custom trips. Like last year, I ran a tour with some guys who were big scuba divers, and so we modified our trifecta 3-country tour a little bit to visit the island of Utila off the coast of Honduras, and we spent a few days out there scuba diving. If you come with a group and you have a particular interest, there are some extras we can work into a tour depending on the schedule and what's available. Another common request is there's a lot of great volcanoes here, particularly right around Antigua. You may have seen, if you looked on our site or anything about Guatemala, you've probably seen some photos from the top of Acatenango, where it's just a stunning viewpoint, and you can look down on a really active volcano just next to it and see kind of the red lava shooting out. That's a really popular hiking and camping trip. So we've had a lot of customers who wanted to do that after completing a motorcycle tour, spend a couple extra days here in town to hike up to the top of the volcano and camp out for a night. That's a really popular one as well. Okay. Yeah, that's cool that you guys have the option to customize a little bit. Like you said, people aren't there just to ride; they're also on vacation. So, Guatemala, plenty of opportunities. I'm big into deep sea fishing. Every time I go to Hawaii, I always go out. So, I think that'd be something I would be bothering you about quite a bit.
Yeah, they do sailfish here. There's actually a few companies, fishing operations based out of Florida that keep some boats here at the coast for sailfish tours. So we kind of hook up with them and go out and catch some sailfish. And if you're browsing around our site, you may have seen a photo of me holding one. They're pretty enormous. That's
a nice one. Nice. Well done. Yeah. So again, back to hypotheticals. Let's say I'm coming down from Oregon. I'm going on a 12-day ride with you guys. What do I need to bring?
You need to bring Not too much, really. Like, we pack really light. We've got small Wolfman bags on all our bikes, so the E12s, and they hold a fair amount, but they're a pretty small bag for what people might be used to at home. A couple pairs of clothes. Bring one warm layer, like a fleece or a sweatshirt, that sort of thing, for the night in the mountains. You'll want a bathing suit, some sunscreen, and then just your riding gear and a good attitude, and that's about it. You don't need too much on the road here, actually. And if you're on one of our longer rides, like the Trifecta or the 12-day Mine Discovery, there are some spots along the way where there's the ability to wash some clothes and have laundry done at the hotel, that sort of thing. So we advise people bring as little as you can, because you don't need much. You can bring your phone, bring a camera, and that's about it.
Okay. I'm curious, do you guys, rendezvous with a chase vehicle or anything along the way, or is it everything we can carry?
We do generally, if it's a group bigger than 5, we'll bring a chase truck with us. And if you're a smaller group and you want one, we can do it as well. But we on smaller tours, we won't bring one. We'll just take what we can carry. And it depends on the customers too. Like, some customers like to bring a suitcase and like to have the chase truck, and so we're definitely there to support on that. But some customers actually like packing really light and just being kind of minimalist and a little more autonomous, I guess, without the support truck. So it depends. We have support available when needed.
Okay. How technical is the riding?
It's a mix. Like, we don't do all our rides are sort of adventure style. We don't really do any true trails. We do a lot of back roads, a lot of dirt roads. Roads can be rough and slick and loose in places, but there's nothing really too challenging. We also adapt. On any given day, we have a couple different options we can take, and we adapt to the interests and the riding ability of the group. So people who want to do a little more dirt, people who want to ride a little harder terrain, we'll take some tougher routes. Customers who want a little shorter day or perhaps a little more pavement, we'll take some easier routes. But in terms of what riding ability you need to be to come down, I mean, really we can adapt to, I don't want to say novice. I wouldn't encourage newbies to come down. But we've certainly had people who don't have a lot of riding experience or who haven't had a lot of off-road riding experience who can come down and still really enjoy it. And we just use a little extra caution in that case. And we always try and match up our customers. If you're coming down as a solo rider or with a friend and we're matching up a bigger group, or you're joining one of our group rides, we always try and put people of similar riding ability together. So if you were, say, a newer rider and we've already got 4 or 5 really experienced riders coming down on a particular tour date, we would recommend you come on a different ride with some lesser experienced or different customers, because we don't want anyone, we always want to maximize the riding experience of our customers. And if there's someone who's holding up the group or perceived to hold up the group, it can be a little frustrating sometimes for people. So we always do our best to match people's riding ability together. But then, of course, if you come down as a group on your own, a lot of our customers come down as groups of friends who ride together back at home. So they all know their own ability and they just want a private ride with their friends, and that's never an issue. That always works great.
It's always interesting adapting to the different people and the different riding abilities on every tour.
Yeah, and also just people's interests as well. Like, some people, will want to stop a lot and see all sorts of things, and other people just are more inclined to pound through the miles, essentially. So finding kind of a balance for everybody, where there's enough visits but there's enough riding, and and in the end it always works out great. Like, we never have anybody disappointed at the end. Everyone's always like, the riding here is so good and the scenery is so good and the experience is so much fun. Like, it's hard to have a bad time down here.
I bet. Hey, is motorcycle endorsement or license required to ride with you guys down there?
We make exceptions in certain cases. So our insurance does require a motorcycle license to be covered. We've had a lot of customers over the year who have been riding off-road for years and years and are clearly very experienced, but never did much street riding. And we will take customers like that who don't have a license but can demonstrate that have sufficient experience to be safe on the road, essentially. But we've always been surprised how many requests we get from new riders as well. People who, just got their license last week, have never ridden at home, don't have a bike, but want to come down here and ride. And, in situations like that, we try and it can be a challenging ride for a new rider, someone who doesn't have a lot of experience and isn't used to multi-day trips on the road, because 6 and 7 hours a day does add up over the course of a week. So anyway, does that answer the question about licenses? Technically we do require them, but we make exceptions in certain cases.
Okay. I've spent the last few weeks actually talking to quite a few people who have ridden through Central America, have ridden through South America, or at least planning to do so. And everybody says it's safe, it's all worked out. Is there anything to be concerned about when we're coming out on a ride like that?
Safety-wise, no, not really. Like on our routes, Guatemala as a whole, if you look at the numbers, is a fairly dangerous country. But almost all the crime and violence is in Guatemala City and related to drug trafficking and things like that. There's very little crime against tourists. There are a couple areas in the country to be cautious of, but we don't go to those places. And on our routes, we spent a lot of time really selecting our routes and destinations carefully to make sure we're going and staying in safe areas. We've never had any safety issues on the road, and I don't feel concerned at all actually about bringing customers where we go. It's always a great experience. What you read about on the news in the States and what you experience while you're down here are pretty two different things. We do get this question a lot, but you'll be astonished to find how friendly everybody is once you're down here. Guatemalan people are very friendly and happy, and especially when we're out in the hills and in these remote places, people love seeing us come through. They love to come up and say hello, see who you are, where you're from, ask if you're enjoying the country. They'll give you recommendations. Oh, you should go here. You should check this out. And a lot of people are very thankful for tourism coming out into these more remote areas. And especially out there, there's no crime because they don't have any tourists that come out that way. There's no criminals out there waiting for them. So we have no experience, negative experiences on the road with safety. It's yeah.
Yeah, no less safe than anywhere else. Hey, you've ridden, you've obviously got a pretty extensive, adventure motorcycling background. What's different about riding in Guatemala as opposed to, let's say, Colorado, for instance?
Well, I mean, for one thing, there are basically no traffic laws down here. So the roads are much more chaotic than they are in the States. I've never in my 7 years here seen the police pull anyone over. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You can ride a wheelie past a police officer across the yellow line and they'll cheer you on,
That's awesome.
But because of that, the roads are also much more hazardous. There's a lot of people speeding. There's a lot of people stopped in the road. There's a lot of erratic movements of the vehicles. People come around corners very wide. People will be riding who don't have headlights or brake lights. So you really just need to be extra vigilant when you're riding here. I mean, we're using mostly back roads and quiet roads. So there's not really any heavy traffic where we're going. But the roads are pretty hazardous, and you got to be on your toes more than you do in Colorado. And you got to depend on yourself to be able to avoid any dangers that arise rather than relying on traffic laws or police enforcement.
Yeah, so more defensive than usual. I'm amazed. I've watched a lot of motorcycle documentaries lately, and some of the things I see in Asia with just the amount of traffic, and the speed and the flow of everything, it blows my mind. I think for some, that's probably the most dangerous parts of the ride is riding through the cities.
Yeah, that's true. And we avoid Guatemala City here like the plague. It's a miserable riding experience if you were to go through the city, but we never go there. But on the upside to all this is that because there are so many motorcyclists here and because the roads are so hazardous, people are used to motorcycles being around and they're more aware that a motorcycle might be near them. So everybody in the country sort of drives more defensively, as you said. And as a motorcyclist, that's advantageous for us.
Okay. Hey, Evan, I'm curious, you've been at this, I think you're going into your 6th year. I usually ask people what they've learned from motorcycle adventures, but you've been leading, diverse groups of clients for a number of years. What has that taught you? Catch you off guard?
Yeah, let's see. Well, it certainly taught me to, I think just spending a lot of time riding down here with other people has sort of given me an appreciation for different types of riding. When I used to ride on my own, it was very destination focused. Back in the days, like when I was reading ADV Rider, I'd say, I want to go here and I want to go there. And I would try and reach these sort of particular places. And that was the goal of the trip. But riding with customers who come down, I've really learned to enjoy the ride, like every minute of it as you go along, going a little slower, not being focused on where you're going, but really being focused on the moment. Because a lot of our customers who come down, they're on vacation, they're looking to relax, and they have trust in us that we're going to bring them fun places, so they don't have to worry about that on their own. They just sort of absorb what's coming in at them in the moment. And that's, I think, I've noticed myself now when I go out on rides on my own, just taking a little more time with it and enjoying myself in the moment more than with a particular goal.
Sure. Great answer. I got 2 more questions for you. First one, why should we come and ride with you guys in Guatemala?
Oh, man. Well, it's fun. Like, we get a lot of people who we get 2 types of customers here. Well, more than that, but we get a lot of people who have ridden with other tour companies in different countries. There's a lot of groups of riders who every year, say with their friends, they pick a country and they go there. But we've actually been getting, because we're closer to the United States and because it's easier to travel to Guatemala than some of these more distant places, we get a lot of first-time international riders. And so we've got a lot of customers who have never ridden outside of the States or never ridden outside of Canada. And it's probably about 50% of our customers come from North America like that. And it's a really good sort of immersive experience for someone who is looking for something new, but doesn't really want to go too far away. It also becomes a very affordable trip because flights are cheaper to get here, and also because our tours are more affordable than some of our competitors in different countries. We are probably one of the most affordable week and 2-week long motorcycle tour companies you can ride with. We provide everything you need here, so you don't need anything in particular to come. And it's a pretty easy country to travel to, like I mentioned. And, it's only a 2-hour, 15-minute flight from Florida. Surprisingly,
oh, wow.
A lot of people get surprised how close we actually are, like as the crow flies from the States. So it's if you have a week off work, we're a very easy country to get to. You can come down on a Saturday and you can fly back the next Saturday, take 1 week off of work, and have a great riding experience. Whereas if you're going to Vietnam, you're going to spend 2 days traveling, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that does surprise me. I could probably literally be there in about 8 hours if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's direct flights from Miami, from Houston, Atlanta, and they're all really affordable.
And back to your point, for someone like me who, I think in a few years from now you'll see me riding through South and Central America, this might be a good way to get your feet wet, get a feel for it, get a taste of what it's like riding in another country too, right?
Oh, for sure. And the riding here is is so much different. It's not, like I said, it's not challenging. We're not out to push people's limits or give them an intense experience. We're here to help people have a great vacation and have a fun riding trip. And it, like you said, it's a great place to get your feet wet because it's close. And of course, we always tailor it, like I mentioned, to our customers and their interests. And yeah.
Okay, Evan, I've taken up a bunch of your time today. I'm very appreciative of it. One last question. Where do we go to learn more about MAG Tours?
Best place for information is going to be rideguatemala.com. We've got everything up there about all our tours and everything we do. You can check us out on Instagram too, at MAG Tours, MAG Tours. Yeah, those are the best sources. And if you have any questions, you can shoot us an email or send us an IM on Instagram.
Okay, Evan, really appreciate you giving us some of your time today.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Evan. And again, thank you for coming on and talking to us all about MAG Tours. Listeners, if you want more information, rideguatemala.com is their website. You can follow them on Instagram at MAG Tours, and you can also follow Evan on Instagram at EFMoto and hit him up if you have any more questions or information. Personally, I'm ready to go. I'm sold. Maybe the next year or two we get down there and do some riding with Evan. I would love to do that. But again, thanks for coming on. BenMotorcycleAdventures.com. That is our website. Again, you can always revisit every episode of the podcast there through our blog, all the written content, off-road, dual sport, adventure motorcycle tours, written content, tips, you name it. All that's on the website, and I'll be adding more here in the very near future. So BenMotorcycleAdventures.com if you want to catch up and kind of follow along with the things that we're doing, and also on Instagram at Ben Motorcycle Adventures. Very active on that platform, so swing by and check us out. Upcoming episodes, wow, we've got a lot of them coming down the pipe. I mentioned on the last podcast that our friend Keith will be riding in Baja starting Saturday, and he wanted to come on the podcast and recap each and every day for 7 days. So you may actually, starting Saturday night, you may actually get 7 straight days of recaps from Keith. So that would be very nice. And also, I've got a couple of people who are actually out riding around the world as we speak, scheduled to come on the show. So a lot of great content, coming down the pipe really soon here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. So when we deliver that content to you, you immediately download it and it's ready to go. You can listen on your drive to work, while you're at work, while you're sitting on a beach in Guatemala, maybe riding with Evan. I don't know what the circumstances might be, but definitely a lot of great content coming down the pipe, and you'll probably see the next episode of the podcast released Sunday morning with Keith. So really looking forward to that. Other than that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Episode number 19. We'll catch you on episode 20 with Keith. We'll see ya.